Hello everyone and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, and today I'm going to be talking about the 13 keys and why this is a fundamentally flawed system for 2024. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want more content just like this. And so, as of right now, we all know Joe Biden just dropped out of the presidential race. And this 13 keys tracker was developed by a professor by the name Alan Lichtman. He created this system in the 1980s to predict the US elections using 13 true and false questions that would predict the status of the incumbent party in the White House. If the incumbent party has 5 or 6 false keys, they lose the White House. So if I were to flip this, you would see Donald Trump ends up winning. But according to Alan Lichtman's analysis, he actually would theoretically have Harris winning the keys. Now, basically, he has not made a final determination as to who would win the presidential election so far. But based out of this website, these people basically track what he said in real time of these keys. And so we're going to be breaking down all these keys and really kind of show you guys why this year these keys are not going to be correct. And if he has Harris winning, he is more than likely going to make the biggest mistake of his political career. Now, the first key, the midterm games, is obviously false. Republicans gained in the House in 2022, so obviously no midterm gains is clearly false. And we see here no primary contest, right? Because these keys originally were true when incumbent President Biden was now in the race. However, because Biden is not in the race, this dropped out. And apparently, according to Alan Lichtman, the no primary contest key is theoretically true because Harris has secured 2/3 of the delegate vote. However, I believe that this is an extremely flawed analysis of this key because, Alan, at the end of the day, Harris is not the one who was elected to be the Democrat nominee. Joe Biden was the one to receive 2/3 of the delegates and was able to get 14.5 approximately million people to vote for him in an basically uncontested primary. We saw his challengers got a little bit over 1 million votes, but at the end of the day, Joe Biden was the one who actually was voted into the nomination slot, not Kamala Harris. And so to automatically assume that this key would still be valid after the Democrat Party basically cooed their own president and replaced him with a nominee that practically got 0 votes from any grassroots support is definitely a very, very disingenuous way of looking at this key. And I would argue that this key would already be false because of that facetious fact alone. Obviously, Biden is not running for re-election, and Harris is not the incumbent president. Therefore, they do not retain this incumbency key. Now, the third party key to me doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because the rule for Allen is supposedly that one candidate has to poll over 10%. And if third parties are combining for over 10%, it wouldn't matter. It only has to be one person that's polling over 10%. But that wouldn't really make any sense because you're assuming, based on your model, that all third parties would hurt the incumbent party. That's why the key would turn false and it would hurt the incumbent party in power. But it doesn't really make a lot of sense to only exclude it to be one candidate to get over 10% because it's like, okay, well, if you're assuming that all third party candidates would hurt the incumbent party simultaneously based off of this key, then why are you saying that all the 3 candidates polling over 10% combined doesn't make the key false and that only Kennedy would have to be polling over 10% in order for this key to be false? Let me give you an example. Let's say a Republican ran third party. Let's say Vivek Ramaswamy ran third party and somehow managed to pull over 10%. If that was the case, he would probably put this key false. But would it really hurt Biden? Probably not. It would hurt Donald Trump because Vivek is very conservative. He is a registered Republican. And so, yes, theoretically, according to your model, a third-party candidate would be getting over 10%. But the problem with that is that you wouldn't really be able to put this false because it would actually hurt Donald Trump. And so it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense how this model works. It's assuming that the third party candidates would only hurt the incumbent party. And so why does one candidate have to poll over 10% if all of the other third party candidates would hurt the incumbent party anyways, and they're still polling over 10%? It's clear to me that he is being very biased, and the fact that he just doesn't want to flip this key, because he is at this point a partisan hack. This guy has really been trotted around after the debate with Biden to give these people copium, and the way he's using his model this year doesn't make any sense. Now, just to preface, he has had a very impressive track record. I mean, he predicted Al Gore was going to win the popular vote, and then he didn't win the election, and then he had to change his model for it to only predict the electoral college winner, which doesn't really make any sense, because it's like, okay, what are you going to change with the model? The way that you decide the keys? Like, it doesn't really make any sense. But then in 2016, he predicted Donald Trump to be the winner, but then he also said that Donald Trump would win the popular vote. But Donald Trump didn't win the popular vote. So it's like, that to me is kind of where the whole logic really falls apart. He says that the strong term economy and the strong long-term economy are in strong standing. However, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, because polling data indicates that a majority of the electorate does not approve of how the economy is right now. And before you say, oh, well, that's not how it works, well, I can actually go back to the 1992 election. I can go right here and look at your strong short-term economy, right? We can go, and basically he flipped this key false. He basically flipped this key false because a majority of the electorate was saying that the economy was still in recession. So it's like, okay, so in the 90s, personal opinion of how people felt about the economy could change your decision on the keys, but now it doesn't matter. Now you're going to go strictly based off of the economic factors. So again, that flip-flopping doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Major policy change, he has this true because of Build Back Better. No social unrest to me. I mean, at this point, yes, Israel-Hamas protests on college campuses. I mean, who cares? Who cares? He's saying that was as big of a deal as the BLM riots. That is not the same effect. BLM riots had a way bigger impact socially than the Israel-Hamas conflict did. And on top of that, Donald Trump's assassination attempt, and you're not going to flip this key? I mean, Donald Trump's favorability ratings have gone up. He just scored a 46% approval rating in the most liberal pollster in the nation, Quinnipiac. Arguably, this key should be flipped false because of a near assassination attempt of a former president. I would argue that would have a bigger impact than some protest on a college campus, to be honest, because this has a nationwide effect. And yes, obviously the Israel-Hamas conflict has sparked a lot of problems, but at the end of the day, the assassination or the near assassination of a former president, I believe, would have a bigger impact and would definitely cause social unrest. And I feel like this key should be false. No scandal. Yes, I understand that the incumbent president, it has to be applied to him only, and that yes, Hunter Biden, him having quote-unquote business dealings is not going to really be considered a scandal. I get that. But at the end of the day, the media basically hid Biden's own mental deficiencies. And it has to do particularly with him. Biden is the one that has the mental problem. And Alan, I understand that you're saying that people are not doctors or professional people to diagnose Joe Biden, but it's very apparent to a majority of the electorate that he is not fit to serve for the nation, not because of his ideas, but because of the fact that he can't even talk. He can't speak the ideas. He can't communicate well. He is looking very, very lost. His wife had to carry him down the stairs practically after the debate. So to say that there's no definitive proof that Joe Biden doesn't have some sort of mental cognitive problems is very disingenuous to the electorate. And now the Israel-Hamas conflict is basically flipping the no foreign military failure keys and military failure success to false. But his previous take on these keys were not genuine at all, because He said that the Afghanistan pullout that killed 13 US soldiers and that had equipment given to the Taliban from our side because we left it there, he said that that wasn't a military failure because the electorate would not remember it, even though it arguably is what actually caused Joe Biden to become an unpopular president. His approval went from net +4 to net positive, or to net -4 or 5 in like the span of a week after that. And then key 12, charismatic incumbent, that's obviously false. Joe Biden does not have over a 60% approval rating, and Donald Trump does not have over a 60% approval rating. And so according to his keys, the way he has them ranked right now, Harris would in fact be the winner. The one that I feel like he should flip for sure is third parties. This is the one I feel like is the most obvious that he has to flip, because it doesn't make any sense to me that over 10% of the electorate is voting for third parties, that according to his model, third parties only hurt the incumbent party in power. It doesn't make any sense that all third parties are adding up to 10% and they're gonna basically not have this key false. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And so this was basically a video to show why these keys are fundamentally flawed for this cycle. It's a good system, but he's not using them right. I don't know why he hasn't flipped social unrest. I really don't know why he hasn't flipped no third party. And the no primary contest key is very, very finicky. There's a lot of keys on here that you could say may or may not really even be that accurate. Even the short-term economy, with the way people feel about the economy, and the fact that he's used polling data to contradict what would be a true categorization for the key, you know, it doesn't really make any sense that now we can't use the fact that a majority of the electorate is not approving of the economy. That to me doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And we have, you know, as well, if we look, Donald Trump is polling, you know, 5 points ahead of Harris. He's outside the margin of error. And based on the way the Electoral College works, Biden or any Democrat would have to win the national popular vote by 4 or 5 points to even barely scrape by in the Electoral College. So Donald Trump is well outside the margin of error. Unless you're telling me that Harris is going to gain 10 points leading up to the election. Oh, and all the aggregates have always underestimated Donald Trump in polling data. So you're telling me that Harris is going to net 10 to 15 points between now and election day in 100 days? I feel like that is very, very impossible to happen at this point in time. Donald Trump's favorables are going up, Harris's are going down. And so to me at this point, guys, I feel like the keys are very, very flawed this cycle, just based on the fact that they coup the incumbent president. That basically makes this key very finicky. Third parties are adding up to over 10%. And a near assassination of a former president, I believe, would cause social unrest. This one's a little bit more subjective, but I definitely think the no primary contest key and the no third party would definitely should be false at this point in time. And so if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.